Members, AB 24 will require gas stations, libraries, bars, and residential hotels to have opioid blocker needle sprays for
Narcan on site to prevent deaths from opioid overdoses. It would only apply to counties that the California Department of Public Health has determined to be in an opioid overdose crisis and would be provided by the department to these facilities in those counties. Opioid blocker sprays work by binding the same receptors in the brain that are activated when consuming opioids. After the spray is administered, the overdose can be completely reversed in 30 seconds and a life is saved. The difference between life and death when someone overdoses is how quickly the opioid blocker can be accessed. For an opioid blocker to be effective and save a life, it requires someone near the person overdosing to have access to the medication, because opioid users who are in the midst of an overdose cannot self-administer the medication once they become unconscious. It's also easy to use and has no dangerous side effects. I say this because I have personally administered Narcan after someone had overdosed on the sidewalk in front of my apartment in San Francisco's Tenderloin. The opioid crisis is hurting our sons, daughters, mothers, and fathers in every county and assembly district in our state. We must get fentanyl off of our streets and out of our communities, and we must dramatically expand access to treatment and recovery. But there's also no excuse not to make sure this life-saving intervention is available when someone overdoses. Just like a first aid kit or a fire extinguisher, we hope we never have to use it, but the risk is great enough that it should be there in the rare case that we do. As noted in the analysis, we worked on a number of amendments with the Committee on Liability and Immunity language. These amendments will align the bill with existing law and should address most of the concern raised by some of the local government groups. I will continue to work with the Health Department to determine the most effective way to administer these kits. And with me today is Tara Gamboa Eastman, Senior Advocate from the Steinberg Institute.
Thank you.
Good
First
morning.
witness.
Great. Good morning, Chair and members. Tara Gamboa Eastman with the Steinberg Institute. Really proud to support AB 24, which would expand access to life-saving opioid blockers. Drug overdose is now the leading cause of death for Californians 15 to 44 years old. The rate of overdose deaths among teenagers has increased by 370% since 2017. Fentanyl is involved in at least 55% of all fatal overdoses. And there are now 11 times as many fentanyl deaths as there were 5 years ago. The good news is that overdoses can be completely reversed using the first aid treatment called an opioid blocker. There are no dangerous side effects, and they are completely safe to use even if the person who received the medication is not having an opioid overdose. However, opioid users who are in the midst of an overdose can't self-administer naloxone once they become unconscious. Making sure the most effective tool to stop overdoses is always available is critical to stopping deaths. As the Assemblymember pointed out, while other public health interventions like first aid kits and fire extinguishers are required to be kept in public locations, opioid blockers are not. That's what this bill seeks to do, make critical public health interventions more readily available, and that's why the Steinberg Institute is thrilled to support AB 24. Thank you, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
I'd like to move the bill.
Okay, we don't have a quorum quite yet, but once we do. Other witnesses in support? Seeing none. Witnesses in opposition? Seeing none. Questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none. Mr. Haney, you may close.
Thank you, and thank you again, Mr. Chair and the committee, for your support on some of the liability and immunity language. This is one of the many things that we have to do to confront the most deadly epidemic facing our state at the moment, which is fentanyl and overdose epidemic. This is the most effective tool to ensure we can save lives, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.